what's up and how are you doing? I hope you guys are doing well. So, as promised, I'm here live on Facebook, trying to give and throw some light on how or what should be your approach to get an 8777 in IELTS, 8 in listening, 777 in reading, writing, and speaking. Firstly, the question arises, why should we get an 8777 and why is that the immigration agencies or the Canadian government warns you to get an 8777? Okay, 8 in listening again, and 7 in the other three modules. That is because area-wise, or you can say region-wise, there are different parameters to gauge your English language skills. For example, if you go to Europe, there they have CEFR. So your English language skills would be based on the different criterias which are set up, which are laid down, and which are, you can say, agreed upon in the entire Europe and primarily in the UK. If you go to Canada, there is something called as Canadian CLB, Canadian Level Benchmark. So they people or the experts or even the Canadian government have set up few parameters to gauge, to assess, to evaluate your English language skills. So in order to get a CLB 9, guys, yeah, in order to get a CLB, now there are different levels, CLB 1, 2, 3, 4, and it goes on till 11. 11 is the max. If you get a CLB 9, it would be equivalent to your performance in IELTS. And since IELTS has its own way to gauge your English language skills in listening, reading, writing, and speaking, they have different ways to gauge, but it can be evaluated. It can be, put across on a common ground and can be evaluated. So if you get an 8777 in IELTS, 8 in listening and 7 in the remaining three modules, you would have equivalency of CLB 9. Okay, so if you have CLB 9, the government of Canada wants people to have competitive, English language skills, and they have realized that, or they put it as a benchmark that someone who gets a CLB 9 or equivalent would get certain band scores, certain, I'm sorry, not band scores, certain scores in the CRS, Comprehensive Ranking System. So that's why there are a lot of immigration agents, all immigration agents, as a matter of fact, who would ask you to get an 8777. Now the question comes here, why should you get, or how rather, we spoke about why, but now we'll talk about um, how to get 8777. Now it's pretty simple and straightforward as far as the listening and the reading goes. And when I'm talking about immigration, it is IELTS general. I'm not talking about IELTS academic over here. I'm talking about IELTS general because those, as I mentioned in the previous webinar or in my live this thing video, that you would have to write IELTS general in order to migrate to countries like Canada, Australia. I'm not talking about Australia because the reason being, there are no, I wouldn't say no more, but it's not like a spree. Now, there are a lot of people who are applying for Canada because the doors are open over there for people to migrate and call it as their home. So I'll talk about IELTS general. So for listening and reading, it is pretty straightforward. If you get somewhere more than 34 out of 40 questions, okay, I'm not talking about the technical details about how many questions would you have and how many sort of questions and different sections and the tips and tricks on IELTS listening. I have mentioned that in a different video. However, here I would want to talk about some basic rules which others might know. For those who know IELTS, it would be helpful for them. So if you get somewhere close to 34 on a consistent basis when you practice, and if you write a test, the IELTS test, if you get 34 or 35, it is very likely that you would get an 8. Okay, so that's why, guys, it's very, very important that when you practice at home, if you're not taking over training or if you're practicing at home, yeah, it's very vital that you get anything more than 33 or 34. Now, if you take a look at different sources on internet, They might have some sort of a chart or some sort of a table which says if you get somewhere between this and that, if you get 33, you'll get this. If you get 34, you get 8.5 and so on. So it is not fixed, guys, because in IELTS, you have different types of questions. They are actually categorized. Okay, categorized as easy, mediocre, and tough. So obviously, if they ask you or send you the tough question paper, then you would get some sort of a, I wouldn't say privilege, but you would get a benefit in terms of if you get 33, you might still get or 34, you might still get an 8 out of 9 bands. Or if you get an easy one, you might have to score 35 or 36. So that depends on them. You wouldn't even come to know that as to which kind of question paper you were asked or you were told to respond to. But keeping that aside, it's not to confuse you because that's an internal matter between IDP, British Council, and Cambridge. You are not even supposed to know that, I would say. Don't even think of that. You just try to practice as much as you can. Okay, and then try to get on a consistent basis more than 34, 33 or 34. If you're getting on a consistent basis lesser than 33, then it is very likely that you might not get an 8. Okay, so you have to get that on a consistent basis. That's for listening, and that's the same for reading. Okay, the ease or the difficulty level of English, the IELTS, test that I spoke about, and for listening, is the same for IELTS reading as well. Okay, I'm not talking again about the different sections that you have and what you're supposed to do, what are the different tips and tricks. Maybe I would come up with a different video on that, but this topic doesn't uh, ask me to talk about that. So if you get more than 34, 33 or 34 in listening and reading, you'll get an 8, right? Sorry, a 7. I'm so sorry. For listening, you're supposed to get 34 or 35. Okay. For reading, there can be somewhere between 32 to 34. Yes, somehow and anyhow, you're supposed to get that. Okay, that's for reading. Because in reading, you're just expected to get a 7. You can I for, or you can target, I in the sense I, target. Your vision should be to get more than like 8.5. Keep that as a target. And in the worst case scenario, you would definitely get a 7. Yeah, so work hard, keeping that in view. So that was about listening and reading. Talking about speaking, I spoke about speaking in the last week in the webinar or the live video on Facebook. You can take a look at that. Just go to Englishly, www.facebook.com, go to my Englishly, and you would find my page. And go to the last week's date, and then you'll get the video. I spoke in depth about IELTS speaking test. But talking about what is required for you to get a 7 in IELTS speaking. Here we go. Firstly, now for those people, especially who come from bigger cities in India, or maybe from other parts of the world as well, who have completed their education in English through English medium. Okay, the medium of instruction was English. They literally stand somewhere between, if they are from, you can say, an average kind of a candidate in terms of the English skills, they would stand somewhere around 5.5 or close to 6. So you might think, Aleem, it might not be a great deal to get a 7 from 6. But guys, in order to um, upskill yourself, in order to get a 7, when you practice with yourself or by yourself, that might be different. If you practice with somebody who is like a pal or buddy or your cousin, your sibling, whomsoever, that would be different. If you're still practicing even with your trainer, okay, that might still, you would meet your trainer every day. But when you go to the test, the examination hall, to the test, there it is very likely that very commonly people become very anxious, very nervous. And when you are nervous, you would definitely tend, you wouldn't do it consciously or wantedly, desperately, but that would happen subconsciously, right? So in order to ensure that you don't do that, firstly, practice amply. Secondly, ensure that you use a lot of cohesive devices. I'm talking about those aspects, keeping aside the aspects which are very much required or which are quite commonly found in the English speaking skills of people, that is grammar and pronunciation. Now, I'm keeping this aside and talking about the other add ons, okay, the icing on the cake. Keeping grammar and your pronunciation aside. There might be few people, and there might be different regions wherein people might make some mistakes because of their mother tongue influence. For example, few people wouldn't be able to say sh. They don't say fish, they say fish. Okay, this is not to ridicule you or to talk something differently or negatively about it, but that is natural, I would say. I wouldn't say God gifted, but that comes from the mother tongue. But keeping that aside, if grammar and pronunciation are okay, I'll talk on a different day as to how to improve what is that you would have to work on in grammar and pronunciation on a different day. But as of now, my target is to just talk about those things which can help you get a 7, keeping in view your grammar in speaking, in grammar and pronunciation if you're okay. What else you're supposed to do? So use cohesive devices. Go to internet, try to figure out what are the different cohesive devices. They are also called as cohesive phrases. Cohesive devices, cohesive phrases, and then they are also called as discourse markers. Just use these words, type on Google, try to get a list of that, and try to use them naturally. You should use it naturally. For example, words like moreover, apart from that, additionally. Yeah, these are the words or phrases you can use when you want to talk about something else which you are already talking about. Okay, if you're talking about great weather, good weather, okay, be it be rainy, summer, whatever it is. If you want to talk about something related to it, you're talking, you got started. I love winter season because of XYZ. Now you want to give a different perception or you want to add something on whatever you might have mentioned already, you can use these words. Moreover, apart from that, what happens here? You create a link between what you are saying and what you have said previously. That is called as cohesion. Cohesion is nothing but how you interlink, okay, one sentence with the preceding sentence with the succeeding the preceding sentences with the succeeding sentences. All right, so that's your coherence. A lot of people do not use cohesive devices, and as I'm not saying that you have to try you have to use lots and lots of cohesive devices, but ensure that you use them naturally. Try to use about 4 or 5, 5 to 6 in the entire speaking time of 11 to 14 minutes, okay, but use them naturally. Ensure that it doesn't look to the assessor that you're just saying for the heck of saying it. Okay, so try to use them as much as you can, as accurately and naturally as you can. You should sound more natural. That's more important. Coming to the other part of it is when I talk about grammar, you have to ensure that you have to use lengthy sentences, use complex sentences, use compound complex sentences, right? Use lengthy sentences. Okay, that would definitely help. You might have great grammars, good knowledge about grammar. However, if you use very small sentences, then the assessor obviously would have an impression that you're not so great in creating lengthy sentences because at the end of the day, it would be um, just you would just throw an impression in front of your listener that you have good command in the skills when you use lengthy sentences. You wouldn't want to say something in chunks and in pieces. Yeah, so that's the command you would have to show. Use lengthy sentences. Apart from that, I would also want to say that you would have to use strong, vocabulary. What are the different aspects which can help you upskill your vocabulary? Is use tier 3 words. Use strong vocabulary. Point number one. You can also try to use a few other idiomatic English. Try to use some idioms. Try to use some figures of speech. Try to use some different collocations which are not commonly used in your city or your country. Try to use phrasal verbs which are hardly used by people. When you do that, that literally shines, it literally polishes your English, and then the assessor would say, wow, what a speech. Yeah, not a speech, but what a discussion. All right, so that's where you might have, again, good understanding of the words and you might know the meanings of it, but that would not do justice. If you want to outshine and get an 8777, this is what you're supposed to do. And for that, you would have to work a bit. You would have to do a little bit of a homework. So I would say apart from grammar and pronunciation, not making those mistakes, okay, keeping that up, fine as well. Try to work on your cohesive devices. Apart from not making mistakes in pronunciation, in grammar, try to ensure that you use cohesive devices and try to ensure that you use strong vocabulary in English. Okay, that would help you get a 7 for sure. Apart from that, guys, let me now talk about IELTS writing. Now, this is the pain area. This is the place, this is the module where people get stuck. They've been getting stuck at 6 or 6.5. Okay, here as well, I would say I'll talk about the same thing. Ensure that you use strong vocabulary. Okay, you have to work on it anyways. Just try to go to Google, just try to go to those websites which give you a lot of information. You can also try to go to this website called indiabix.com, indiabix.com, indiabix.com. Try to search for a few one word substitutes. That would also help you enhance your skills. I'm talking from the perspective of English on a long run. Yeah, keeping IELTS aside, if you want to improve your vocabulary on a long run. For example, if you're very, very sure, very, very keen on migrating to an English speaking country, you might not want to sound like a person from the third world nation. You become a permanent resident. Maybe after 2 to 3 years, you might become a citizen. You might want to sound like them. You might want to have a command and speak like the native speakers speak the English language. So it is very important that you upskill your vocabulary as well. That would help you. Okay, be fluent and then help yourself improve your vocabulary. And then you can also try to figure out few root words. Common, very, very common root words. Most of the words, I wouldn't say if not most, many, many words in English come from Greek and Latin languages. Okay, so there are a lot of words which have been borrowed from these, not borrowed so as to return it back, but have been taken from these two languages. Okay, so that would also help you if you know the root words. Okay, that would literally, for example, the word aqua. Aqua means water. Bio means life. Now you can make a lot of words with biology, yeah, biotechnology, yeah. So these are the root words. If you understand these words, no matter what sort of word comes to you, but you would have to work for that as well. Work hard a little bit for that as well. So now this was not just related to IELTS, it would help you for IELTS too, but not that much. But on the long run, this would definitely help you. Again, talking about the vocabulary for speaking and writing both, I don't want you to use the entire all the words that you use when you speak and when you write to just use all the tier three and special words, strong words, hard words that people might have to open a dictionary to take a look at the meaning. No, I'm not saying that. When you speak, try to use just 5 or 6 maximum. IELTS is different from TOEFL, guys. In TOEFL, people literally sit down and try to read new words, try to acquire new words, learn, remember, memorize new words. This is IELTS. In IELTS, it's not required. You got to be accurate. You got to be correct whenever you use English, whatever you speak and whatever you write. Ensure that you just use when you speak about 5 to 6 words of from the strong as strong words, strong vocabulary. I mean, try to ensure that, and it would be very, very likely. Use it accurately, okay? Then it would be very, very likely that you would get a 7. Coming to the writing part, use the same part, vocabulary, ensure that you do that. And ensure, guys, that you address all the parts of the task. I remember a lot of people not a lot of people, but a few people came back and said, Aleem, we forgot to write something in the task one when we are supposed to write a letter. And for to as a surprise, as a matter of surprise, there was one person whom I know very well who wrote IELTS, who got a 7. He got 8777. Okay, and in writing he got a 7 despite, I don't know if this was a miss by the assessor or something. He got a 7, but he got a 7 despite missing to write about a particular part of the first task. What happens in the first task in IELTS writing? You're supposed to write a letter. In the letter, they tell you what you're supposed to write. They tell you what you're supposed to write. For example, write a letter to so and so and ask them write this, this, this. They would give you a bullet, 3 bullet points at least, and they ask you, help you, aid you as to what you're supposed to write in the letter. I remember this guy who wrote about 150 to 160, 180 words, but he forgot to write about 1 bullet point and from that question. But despite that, he got a 7. Yeah, and I also know those people who wrote very well, who did very well in my training, um, who got very good band scores in the mock sessions, which I conduct in my training as a part of the IELTS batch. However, they had stupendous, very, very strong writing skills. And one of the persons whom I know also happens, one of my students, yeah, whom I would definitely don't know, but he was so his writing skills were so exceptional, right? Sometimes I felt that he's so great, and he used to write articles for the media outlets. media out. He used to write articles at times. That was one person. The other person was a lady from up north, and north in a sense from Delhi, Lucknow, that region, and she used to write very well as well. But despite they writing so well and doing so well with me during in the training, um, and writing all things well. Grammatically, they were well. They used to use quite tough vocabulary. They used to use, strong. They were very coherent. They were very logical. They used to make sense whatever they used to write. They used to use the cohesive devices, and they never went wrong in terms of grammar, spelling mistakes, and so on. But despite that, they got a 6.5, despite writing the test for 2 to 3 times. So that scares me at times. That's literally scares me at times. That shouldn't happen. I don't know why these things happen. There can be exception. I'm not saying that I'm not blaming anybody over here, but it has come up for quite a many times that people who, despite having very good skills, get stuck at 6 and 6.5. I also know a person who got a 6, but he was very good, stupendously great in IELTS writing. And he also went for the recorrection, reevaluation. But despite that, the results did not change. Yeah, this session is not to demotivate you guys or stop you from writing something like IELTS and so on, or this is not to, play a spoil sport from you dreaming to go to a place like Canada and call it your home. But this is just for you to be mentally more prepared, be stronger from now on. And despite few people getting trained, they get less than 8,777, and there are people who, despite get not getting trained, get an 8,777, right? So lot depends on, I would say, the training for sure. The before the training, it is more to do with the language skills which a person already has. And then I don't know. Sometimes now I'm feeling that a lot depends on the assessor as well. I don't know. There have been few mistakes. I don't know, but these things have happened. But of course, you cannot come back to British Council or IDP and say, show me my writing script. I want to see that. I want to see what are the ways in which you have evaluated. But that is kept discreet. And they do not tell you on what basis they give you a six. They just give you a very, what do you call it, simple, simply drafted, very generic reason as to why you might have gotten. You would find that on the other side of the TRF form. So that is something, and that is there on internet on their websites too. Again, it is not about talking about anything bad about IDP or British Council or, but because the thing is, human beings make mistakes. Okay, and all the papers, be it be computer-based tests or paper-based tests in IELTS or for IELTS, are evaluated manually. The system doesn't do it, just like in the PTE. The system evaluates, conducts your stress test, stores your information, your responses, and evaluates you too. But here, there is a manual intervention in IELTS, and wherever there are human beings, there might be some mistakes. But again, that being said, a lot of people have even call on different, platforms, different discussion, social media discussions, and the platform like these. A lot of people have even called IELTS as um, what sort of a spammers and so on. But IELTS is being conducted, has been conducted for 40 years now, close to 40 years in more than 140 countries, or maybe 160 countries or whatever. So if there was a scam, and they were no spammers, sorry, the scammers, they would have, wouldn't have been able to reach out to these many countries already. They would have got banned already, right? So a lot depends on the hard work as well, guys. A lot depends on the skills that you already have. A lot depends on the training, a lot depends on the practice, and a lot depends on you having a control over your nerves, especially in the speaking, right? So ensure that you don't miss on these parts. So for listening and writing, I already mentioned, focus on your vocabulary, focus on your usage of the cohesive devices as well, because I'm saying this out of experience. And I'm not talking about the other aspects, which I've been saying in this video. I'm not talking about grammar and pronunciation over here for speaking, and I'm not talking about grammar and writing. I'm talking about those areas where people just take it lightly. People take cohesive devices lightly. People take using the tough vocabulary lightly. And this is the reason. These are the reasons. I would say, according to my experience, because I evaluate them, give them the band scores, basis the descriptors, band descriptors. So these are the prime reasons why I feel that people miss out and do not get a 7 in IELTS, especially in writing. Okay, and 7 in speaking too. Focus on these things, and that would be helpful. Okay, so if there's any question, there are any questions, guys, please let me know if you have. I'm ready to take a couple of questions. If not, I can end this live video. Hello, Aleem sir, Sadiq Pasha. Hello, Mr. Sadiq. All right, then, thank you so much, guys, for being a part of it. I hope this was helpful to you. If you're preparing for IELTS, I wish you very good luck. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon in the next live video. Take care and bye-bye.